I knew something was wrong the moment the black limousine rolled into the cemetery. Nothing expensive ever showed up here. This part of Detroit was forgotten, just like the people buried under the cracked stones. I stood there holding fresh daisies in my hand, the rain falling on my face as I placed them gently against the cold grave I had visited every Sunday for 5 years. I was about to leave when I felt a shadow fall over me. I turned and saw a tall man stepping out of the limousine. He wore a dark suit that looked more expensive than anything I had ever touched. His eyes were cold and sharp, the kind of eyes that saw everything and judged everything. "That's my wife's grave, too," he said. His voice cut through the rain like a knife. My breath caught in my throat. I froze. No one ever came to this grave except me. I looked at the headstone, the simple marble stone with the name Caroline Preston carved across it. My heart pressed painfully against my ribs. He stopped in front of me, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. Power rolled off him like heat. Even the 2 men standing by the limousine felt dangerous, their hands resting near their jackets as if waiting for a command. For a moment, I could not speak. My coat was worn, the boots on my feet muddy from walking, and here was a man who looked like he ruled the world. He took one more step toward me. "5 years," he said. "Every Sunday, rain or shine," my men told me. "Every week you come with daisies." I swallowed hard. My hands shook around the extra flowers I still held. "I owed her," I whispered. He frowned, confusion pushing away some of the anger on his face. His eyes searched mine with an intensity that made my stomach twist. Something in my face seemed to bother him, like it stirred memories he had buried long ago. "You have 1 minute," he said. 1 minute to explain why you've been visiting my wife's grave. If you fail, my men will escort you somewhere you don't want to go." I felt the air tighten around me. The cemetery suddenly felt smaller, like the gates had closed. I glanced at the 2 men near the limousine. Their stances told me everything. They were armed, and they were ready. Rain grew heavier. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "I was the nurse who held her hand when she died," I said quietly. He blinked. His jaw tightened. Something flickered across his face. Pain, anger, disbelief. "She died alone," he said. "No nurse, no hospital. She was dead on impact." "That's what they told you," I said. My voice cracked, but I forced myself to keep going. "Because that was easier." Lightning lit the sky behind him, illuminating his sharp features. The truth I had kept inside for 5 long years pushed against my lips, begging to escape. He stared at me with eyes that could destroy a person. "Get in the car," he ordered. My chest tightened. The 2 men moved forward at once. "I can't," I whispered. "I have a daughter waiting at home." His face changed. Just slightly, but enough for me to see a crack in the wall he carried around himself. "And I have a daughter who cries every night when she looks at her mother's picture," he said. His voice was rougher now, the edges less hard. "She deserves to know who you are." Quote. The flowers slipped from my hand. They fell onto the grave between us. Something inside me broke open. I didn't want to get into that car, but I knew running was pointless. Jack Preston had a reach far beyond this cemetery. Beyond Detroit. I stepped toward the limousine. Rain and tears mixed on my cheeks. My legs felt heavy, but I kept walking. Sometimes you have to face the past to protect the future, even if that past was wrapped in secrets that could kill you. Jack walked behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence like heat on my back. I heard him breathe out once, slow and steady, almost as if calming himself. When I slid into the leather seat of the limousine, I knew one thing for certain: my life was no longer mine. And whatever truth waited ahead of me, it was tied to a man who could destroy or save me with a single choice. I looked out the window as the limousine door closed. This was only the beginning. The limousine glided through Detroit's wet streets, the city lights blurring against the tinted windows. I sat stiffly on the leather seat, my hands clenched together to hide how badly they shook. Jack Preston sat across from me, silent, studying me with an intensity that felt like he could see straight into my thoughts. I tried to count the turns, to map our route. I needed to know where he was taking me. But the car moved fast, weaving through roads I didn't recognize. Panic kept rising in my chest, no matter how much I tried to push it down. "We're going to Preston Towers," Jack finally said. His voice made me jump. "My office and my home. Somewhere private for this conversation." Private. That word scared me more than the guards with hidden guns. I turned my face toward the window, watching abandoned factories fade into gleaming skyscrapers. Detroit had two sides, and tonight I was seeing the one I never belonged to. When the limousine stopped beneath a glass building that rose 60 stories into the sky, I knew escape was impossible. Even the air here felt different, cleaner, sharper, a world built for power. Jack stepped out first, then waited for me with a patience that didn't feel like kindness. The two guards followed behind us as we entered the lobby, but they stayed back as we walked into the elevator. The doors closed. The small space made my heart pound harder. I pressed myself into the far corner, putting as much distance between us as I could. Floor numbers flashed upward. 48, 50, 53. Jack didn't look away from me. Not once. Each floor felt like a missed chance to explain myself. Or to run. The elevator stopped on the top floor. The doors opened to a penthouse that seemed to float above the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed Detroit's skyline, rain sliding down the glass in silver trails. Everything was sleek and silent, the kind of silence that warned you to be careful with every breath. Jack walked toward the bar, pouring a drink but not offering one to me. "Why did my wife die alone?" he asked. "For 5 years I've been trying to understand, and now you show up with answers that don't make sense." My mouth was dry. I stepped closer to the window, kneading the glass at my back so he couldn't corner me. "I was working late at the hospital," I said. "I saw her brought in through the service entrance." He turned sharply. "That's impossible," he said. "She died on Jefferson Avenue. No hospital. No witnesses." "That's what the report says," I replied. "Because someone made sure of it." His hand tightened around the glass. Ice clinked. His control slipped for a second. I took a breath, steadying myself. "The driver who hit her panicked. He called his brother, who worked hospital security. They smuggled her inside. No paperwork, no doctors, just me." Jack stared at me as if the world had stopped moving. "You expect me to believe that?" he asked. His voice was softer now, but far more dangerous. "I expect you to believe in fear," I whispered, "because that's what controlled everything that night. Fear of you. Fear of what you would do if you knew she was still alive for even a few minutes." He stepped closer, so close I could see the faint scar on his jaw. I could feel the heat from his body. "And yet you visit her grave every week, risking exposure. Why?" "She woke up once," I said. My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. "Just for a moment. She said one thing before she died again." His breath hitched. "What did she say?" "She told me to protect someone named Lily." Jack's face drained of color. The glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor, amber liquid bleeding over the marble. His eyes locked onto mine with a look that felt like a punch to the chest. "Lily?" he repeated. "Lily is Caroline's sister. She died years ago, or so I was told." A cold wave swept through my body. The truth I had carried inside me for so long rose like smoke between us. "My daughter's name is Lily," I whispered. The room went silent. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Jack stepped back, staring at me as if the world had split open. "How old is she?" he asked. "She just turned 5. He closed his eyes for a long moment, his chest rising and falling slowly. When he opened them again, they were filled with something I had never expected to see in a man like him. Fear. Not fear for himself. Fear of the truth. He walked to his desk, unlocked a drawer, and pulled out a silver-framed photo. He handed it to me with shaking fingers. 2 identical women smiled back at me. One was Caroline. The other was her twin sister, Lily. The world tilted. Caroline hadn't been talking about his daughter. She had been talking about mine. Or hers. Or ours. I looked up at him. His eyes were locked on me, searching, questioning, afraid. "Tell me everything," he said, and I knew nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I sat across from Jack in the dim penthouse, my hands cold against the photograph of the two identical sisters, the truth twisted inside me like a blade. Caroline had never been alone in her life. She had a twin, and that twin might be connected to my daughter in ways I had never imagined. Jack's eyes locked on mine. His gaze held fear, anger, and something else I couldn't name. "Start from the beginning," he said. "Everything." Quote, So I told him about that night at the hospital, about the driver who smuggled Caroline in through the service entrance, about how she woke up only once, her voice barely a whisper, about the name she spoke with her last breath, Lily. Jack didn't blink. He just listened, every word sinking into him like stone dropped into deep water. When I finished, he turned away, placing both hands on the desk as if steadying himself. "You said your daughter is 5, he said slowly. "Yes." 5 years, he repeated. 5 years since Caroline died. 5 years since Lily was last seen. I could hear the storm outside pounding on the glass, but inside the silence between us was heavier than anything I had ever felt. Jack opened a hidden panel on the wall. A safe slid forward. He entered a code, and the door clicked open. Inside were dozens of envelopes, neatly stacked, untouched, sealed. He placed them on the glass table. "Letters," he said. "Caroline wrote these before she died. They were never delivered." My breath caught. The envelopes had my old address on them. My heart dropped into my stomach as realization hit me. "You intercepted them," I whispered. "My men did," he corrected. "They thought they were protecting me. They didn't know her twin existed. They didn't know you existed." My hands trembled as I opened the first letter. Caroline's handwriting flowed across the page, elegant and soft. "My dearest sister, if you are reading this, then I am almost out of time." My eyes burned with tears. Jack said nothing as I read aloud. Caroline wrote of running away from someone dangerous, of helping her twin escape too, of ending up in Detroit, of falling in love with Jack even though his world scared her, and of being pregnant. Jack jerked his head toward me. "She never told me," he said. "I didn't know either," I whispered. "None of this makes sense." He ran a hand across his face, the first sign of real exhaustion cracking through his controlled exterior. "She planned to tell me everything," he said quietly, "but she died before she could." I opened another letter, then another. Each one pulled another thread loose in the tangled web of the past. Caroline spoke of secrets she was afraid to reveal, of trying to protect Lily, her twin, and of hoping their children would one day meet. Jack sank onto the sofa, staring out at Detroit's skyline, as if searching for answers in the city lights. "We need to meet your daughter," he said. "Now, tonight." "No," I said firmly. "She doesn't know anything about you. She doesn't know any of this." He looked at me with a raw kind of desperation I never imagined I would see in him. "She's my wife's blood," he said softly. "Maybe yours. Maybe mine. Maybe neither. But she is connected to us through something we are still uncovering." My pulse hammered. "She's a 5-year-old girl," I said. "She needs safety, not chaos." Jack exhaled slowly, his control returning piece by piece. "Then I want to meet her somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere neutral. Somewhere she won't be scared." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mind was racing through the possibilities. My daughter had been my entire world since the day I found her wrapped in a blanket at the hospital. I had raised her alone, loved her alone, protected her alone. Jack leaned forward, his voice lowering. "What's her name?" he asked. My throat tightened. "Lily," I whispered. He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, they were filled with something I didn't expect. Hope. He took a careful breath. "Let me see her. Please." The word please from a man like him felt heavier than a command. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't want to look, but I did. A message from my neighbor flashed on the screen. Lily keeps asking where you are. She's worried. Please, come home soon. Guilt hit me like a punch. Jack watched my expression shift. We'll go together, he said. You won't face this alone. I shook my head. You can't just walk into my home. He stood, adjusting his jacket. Then choose a place. My heartbeat thundered as I tried to think. And then it hit me. Her school recital. Tomorrow night. A public place. Safe. Crowded. Neutral. She has a performance tomorrow, I said. A dance recital. Jack nodded slowly. I'll be there. My chest tightened. You have to be careful. No guards. No weapons. No attention. He held my stare. For her I will. Something in his voice cracked. Something real. Something human. The storm outside finally began to fade. But inside me, a new storm was only beginning. The night of Lily's school recital felt unreal from the moment I woke up. My hands shook every time I tried to braid her hair. I kept rehearsing in my mind how I would introduce her to Jack, how I would keep her safe, how I would make sure she wasn't frightened by a man whose name alone made people step aside on the streets of Detroit. Lily hummed softly as she colored butterflies on a piece of paper, completely unaware that her entire world was about to shift. She looked so peaceful, so bright. My chest tightened with the weight of everything she didn't know. When we reached the school auditorium, parents filled the room with excited chatter. Children in costumes ran around laughing. Nothing about it felt connected to the dark world I'd been pulled into just days ago. Lily stood in her little butterfly outfit, the sequins catching the light. She waved at me with a smile that eased some of my fear. I kept glancing at the entrance. Then I saw him. Jack stepped inside 5 minutes before the recital began. No guards. No dark suits. He dressed like a normal father, the slightest uneasiness in his shoulders as he scanned the room until his eyes found me. He gave one small nod. Respectful. Careful. He sat 3 rows behind us, just as we agreed. The lights dimmed. The audience went quiet. Then, music filled the room as the children walked onto the stage. Lily searched for me with serious little eyes, and when she found me, she smiled wide. I waved gently, then pointed toward Jack. When she saw him, something happened that froze me in place. Recognition. Not fear. Not confusion. Recognition. As if a part of her already knew him. Her eyes softened. Her shoulders relaxed. Then she looked forward to start her dance. My breath trembled. Jack kept his gaze glued to her the entire performance. He didn't blink. He didn't move. His jaw clenched several times. And once I saw him lift his hand to his face, maybe to wipe away something he didn't want others to see. When the recital ended, parents crowded the hall with flowers and praise. Lily held my hand tightly as we walked toward the back of the room. Jack stood quietly near a wall, giving her space, waiting for my signal. I knelt beside her. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "I want you to meet someone very special. This is Mr. Preston." She turned to him with her serious little expression, her butterfly wings still gently bouncing behind her. "You were at my first mom's funeral," she said. My heart stopped. Jack went pale. I grabbed her hand quickly. "Lily, baby, no." But she kept going with innocent certainty. "I saw your picture in my special box." She reached into the tiny pocket of her costume and pulled out a worn wedding photo. Jack and Caroline, folded so many times it barely held together. Jack lowered himself slowly to Lily's level, stunned and careful. He didn't reach for her. He didn't touch her. He just looked into her eyes. "You kept that?" he asked softly. She nodded. "My first mom told me to, in my dreams." A shiver ran through me. Jack's breath shook. He blinked several times before speaking again. "You did good taking care of it," he said. She smiled proudly. 2 weeks later, Lily and I moved into a secure brownstone owned by Jack's company, not because I wanted his power, not because I trusted his world, but because danger had reached our door the moment someone tried to access Lily's school records. The Cleddy family was involved. Their interest in me was growing. Jack didn't take chances with children, especially not now. He visited often, always gentle, always patient, always determined to build a slow, steady bond with Lily. She warmed to him quickly, surprising me with how easily she accepted him into her life. But the peace didn't last. One evening, Jack's most trusted lieutenant arrived unannounced in Montana, where Jack had flown us after threats escalated. His face carried news heavy enough to pull the air from my lungs. They had found Caroline's medical files. And inside those files was the truth that shattered everything we thought we knew. Caroline had never been pregnant. Lily was not biologically related to Jack. She was not related to Caroline. She was the daughter of my childhood friend Beth Porter. Beth had died in the same accident that injured Caroline. Caroline had promised to protect Beth's baby, then whispered that promise to me in her final breath. She had used her last moments to save a child who wasn't her own. When Jack told me, my knees nearly gave out. All the weight of the past 5 years crashed into me. The secrets, the guilt, the confusion. But Jack took my hands in his and said something I will never forget. Family is built by choice, not blood. His voice was rough, honest, stripped bare. She may not be mine by birth, he said, but she is mine by fate, and she is yours by love. Quote. 1 year later, cherry blossoms floated across Detroit's riverfront park as I stood in a white dress, fixing the collar of Lily's mint-colored outfit. She giggled beside Alice, Jack's older daughter, now her closest friend in the world. Guests gathered beneath an arch of white roses. The air felt soft and warm. Jack waited at the end of the aisle in a suit that matched his calm, steady smile. When I reached him, he whispered, "I first met you in a cemetery." I smiled with tears in my eyes. "And I thought you were going to ruin my life." His thumb brushed my cheek gently. "Turns out you saved it." We said our vows surrounded by the people who had survived our story with us. Then, as our daughters threw petals in the air, Jack pulled me into his arms and kissed me with a promise that carried every pain we had lived through. Later, as the sun set, we stood together at the edge of the garden, looking up at the hill where Caroline was buried. "She brought us together," I whispered. Jack nodded. "She protected what mattered most, even from the grave." Quote. And as he wrapped his arm around my waist, I knew our story had begun in loss, but it was built on something stronger. Love chosen, love protected. Love found where I least expected it.